The email came at 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday. Subject line: Resource reallocation effective Monday. I stared at my screen. Not angry. Not yet. Just calculating. The Mercer Pharma account will transition to David Chen. It read. This change reflects our commitment to cost efficiency. David Chen, junior analyst. Smart kid. 2 years out of college. 0 certifications. I pulled up the Mercer contract. Section 4.2. The words were very clear. All compliance work must be performed by certified personnel. GXP certification required. Not recommended. Required. Federal law. Non-negotiable. I forwarded the email to my personal account. Took a screenshot. Saved both to 3 different places. Then I did something my boss didn't expect. I followed the rules. Exactly. 3 weeks later, Mercer Pharmaceuticals suspended their $1.8 million contract. Not because I sabotaged anything. Because my boss assigned their account to someone who wasn't legally allowed to do the work. And when the client found out, they had no choice. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Rachel Donovan. I'm 44 years old. I work in pharmaceutical compliance. I know that sounds boring. When I tell people what I do, their eyes glaze over. But here's the thing. Compliance isn't just paperwork. It's the difference between a drug that saves lives and a drug that gets recalled because someone cut corners. It's the firewall between pharmaceutical companies and federal prosecution. And in this industry, certification isn't optional. It's the law. I got my GXP certification in 2011. GXP stands for Good Manufacturing Practice. It's an FDA requirement. The training took 6 months. Classes every weekend. The exam was 3 hours long and covered everything from documentation standards to quality control procedures. You have to recertify every 3 years. It's not something you just learn on the job. I joined Hartwell Regulatory Solutions in 2018. We're a consulting firm. Pharmaceutical companies hire us to handle their compliance documentation, FDA submissions, quality audits. We keep them legal. We keep them safe. By 2020, I was Senior Compliance Manager. I managed 4 client accounts. But my biggest client was Mercer Pharmaceuticals. Mercer made generic drugs, blood pressure medications, diabetes drugs, pain management. Nothing fancy, but important, and heavily regulated. The FDA watches generic drug manufacturers very closely. Every single batch has to be documented. Every ingredient has to be traceable. Every manufacturing step has to follow exact protocols. One mistake, and the FDA can shut down your entire production line. That's where I came in. I handled all of Mercer's compliance documentation, batch records, process validation reports, supplier audits, deviation investigations, annual product reviews. I was also their main contact for FDA inspections. When inspectors showed up unannounced, I was the one who walked them through our files. I answered their questions. I showed them our processes. In 6 years, Mercer never failed an inspection. Not once. Perfect record. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because someone who knows what they're doing is paying very close attention to every detail. The contract with Mercer was worth $1.8 million per year. It renewed every 12 months. It was our company's biggest account. About 35% of our total revenue. Everyone knew how important Mercer was, especially my boss Brent. But Brent cared about something more than compliance quality. He cared about cost. Brent Coleman was our VP of operations. He'd been with the company for 3 years. He came from a sales background. Not compliance. Not pharmaceuticals. Sales. He was good at talking about efficiency. About margins. About doing more with less. What he wasn't good at was understanding why certain rules exist. 6 months before the email, Brent started asking questions about my salary. Rachel, you're making $112,000 a year, he said during a budget review. That's significant. It's market rate for someone with my certifications and experience, I replied. Right, but couldn't we train someone internally? Someone younger? Someone at a lower rate? I kept my voice calm. Certification takes 6 months of training plus passing the FDA exam. It's not something you can shortcut. But once they're trained, they could do the same work, right? If they pass the exam and maintain certification. Yes. He wrote something down. I didn't like the look on his face. 2 months later, he hired David Chen. David was 24. Fresh out of grad school. Business administration degree. He was smart, polite, eager to learn. He had 0 pharmaceutical experience. 0 compliance background. 0 certifications. Brent introduced him to the team as a compliance analyst. I pulled Brent aside after the meeting. David seems great, I said. But he's not certified. He can't work on regulated accounts. He'll learn, Brent said. Learning takes time. And until he's certified, he can't sign off on any FDA documentation. Then he can shadow you. Get trained. Shadowing is fine. But he can't take over client accounts until he's certified. That's federal law, not company policy. Brent smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. I appreciate your dedication to rules, Rachel. But we also need to think about business efficiency. That's when I knew. He wasn't planning to wait for David to get certified. He was planning to replace me with someone cheaper. And hope nobody noticed. I went back to my desk and opened a new folder on my personal cloud drive. I labeled it Mercer Documentation. Then I started saving everything. Every email from Brent. Every contract clause. Every certification requirement. Every piece of communication with the client. I didn't know exactly what was coming, but I knew it wouldn't be good. And I was going to be ready. The email arrived on Thursday, April 14th. 4:47 p.m. I was finishing my weekly compliance report when I saw Brent's name in my inbox. Subject: Resource reallocation, effective Monday. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. The email was short, professional, carefully worded. Effective Monday, April 18th, the Mercer Pharmaceuticals account will transition to David Chen. This realignment reflects our commitment to cost efficiency while maintaining operational excellence. Please coordinate with David to ensure a smooth handover. Thank you for your continued dedication. I read it 3 times. Then I pulled up the Mercer contract, the one I'd worked on for 6 years. Section 4.2, Compliance Personnel Requirements. All compliance oversight, regulatory documentation, and quality audits must be performed by personnel holding current GXP certification, as recognized by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Failure to maintain certified personnel may result in immediate contract suspension. The language was crystal clear. Not ambiguous. Not flexible. Must be performed by certified personnel. David Chen was not certified. I checked his employee file. Just to be absolutely sure. Education, MBA, Business Administration. Certifications, none. Pharmaceutical experience, none. I opened a reply to Brent. Typed carefully. I received your email regarding the Mercer account transition. Before moving forward, I need to clarify. Does David hold current GXP certification? I didn't say he couldn't do it. I didn't argue. I just asked a simple question. Brent replied in 11 minutes. David is highly capable and will be supported by the team. This decision is final. He didn't answer the question. I replied again. I understand the decision is final. However, the Mercer contract specifically requires certified personnel per Section 4.2. I'm happy to forward the relevant contract language for review. This time Brent called me. Rachel, I don't appreciate you questioning my decisions. I'm not questioning your decision, I said calmly. I'm clarifying a contract requirement. David is smart. He'll figure it out. Brent, this isn't about intelligence. It's about legal compliance. The contract explicitly states. He cut me off. I've made my decision. David takes over Monday. You'll train him for 2 weeks. Then you'll transition to other accounts. And if the client asks about certification, they won't. But if they do, Rachel. His voice got hard. This conversation is over. Follow the plan. He hung up. I sat at my desk for a long moment. Then I opened my personal email and forwarded myself the entire conversation. Brent thought this was about cost savings. What he didn't understand was that some rules aren't flexible. And some clients check. Hey, before we continue, 97% of people never subscribe. If you're enjoying this story, Hit that subscribe button and like the video. It really helps us bring you more stories like this. Thanks. I didn't argue anymore. Didn't push back. Didn't try to change Brent's mind. Instead, I did exactly what he asked. I scheduled a handover meeting with David for Monday morning. Then I did something else. I pulled up the Mercer Pharmaceuticals contact list. Found the name I needed. Jennifer Carr, Director of Quality Assurance at Mercer. She was my main point of contact. We'd worked together for 6 years. I drafted an email. Very carefully. Very professionally. Subject: Personnel Change Notification Compliance Account Management. Hi Jennifer. I wanted to inform you of an upcoming change to your account management team. Effective April 18th, David Chen will be taking over primary responsibility for Mercer's compliance documentation and regulatory submissions. David is a recent addition to our team. I'm attaching his personnel profile for your records per our contract requirements. Please let me know if you have any questions or need any additional information. Best regards, Rachel. I attached David's employee profile, the one that listed his education, experience, and certifications, or lack of certifications. I didn't editorialize, didn't add commentary, didn't say he's not qualified, or this violates the contract. I just provided factual information, the way I was supposed to. Then I scheduled the email to send Monday morning, 9 a.m., right when David officially took over. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was following protocol. Our contract with Mercer required us to notify them of any personnel changes. It also required us to provide credentials for anyone working on their account. I was simply doing my job. After that, I went home, poured a glass of wine, sat on my couch, and waited. Monday morning came. I arrived at the office at 8:30 a.m. David was already there. Eager. Nervous. He dressed up. Nice suit. Trying to make a good impression. Ready for this? He asked, smiling. Are you? I replied. We spent 2 hours going over the Mercer files. I showed him where everything was stored, how the documentation system worked, what the monthly deliverables looked like. He took notes, asked good questions. He really was sharp, but he wasn't certified. And that wasn't his fault. It was Brent's. At 9 a.m. my scheduled email sent automatically. I didn't mention it to David. Didn't mention it to Brent. I just kept training. At 10:47 a.m. my phone rang. Jennifer Carr. From Mercer. I stepped into an empty conference room to take the call. Rachel, I just got your email, she said. Her voice was tight, controlled. Yes, I wanted to make sure you were informed about the team change. I appreciate that. I do. But I have a question about David's profile. Of course. It doesn't list any GXP certification. I paused. Let the silence sit for just a second. That's correct, I said. David is not currently certified. Another pause. Longer this time. Rachel. You know our contract requires certified personnel. I do. So why is uncertified personnel being assigned to our account? That decision was made by my manager, Brent Coleman. I was asked to facilitate the transition. Does Brent understand the contract requirements? I clarified them with him last week. He said the decision was final. I could hear Jennifer typing. Fast. I need to escalate this internally, she said. Don't proceed with any documentation transfers until you hear from me. Understood. She hung up. I walked back to my desk. David was reading through a batch record, highlighter in hand. Everything okay? He asked. Client call, I said. Nothing urgent. At 2:15 p.m. my phone rang again. This time it was Brent. My office. Now. I walked upstairs. Brent's door was closed. I knocked. Come in. He was standing behind his desk. Face red. Jaw tight. What did you do? He demanded. I completed the personnel change notification, I said calmly. Per our contract requirements. You told them David isn't certified. I provided his personnel profile, which doesn't list certification, because he doesn't have it. You sabotaged this transition. No. I followed the contract. Section 6.3 requires personnel change notifications. Section 4.2 requires certified personnel. I provided accurate information. You went around me. I notified the client. That's not going around you. That's contract compliance. Brent pointed at the door. Get out. I left. Back at my desk, I saved the conversation notes to my personal drive. Then I waited. The next morning, I arrived to find 3 missed calls from Jennifer Carr. I called her back at 8:05 a.m. Rachel, I need you to understand something, she said. Her voice was calm but firm. Mercer takes compliance very seriously. We can't have uncertified personnel handling our regulatory documentation. I understand completely. I escalated this to our legal team and our VP of Quality. They reviewed the contract. Okay. We're issuing a formal notice. Effective immediately, we're suspending all new compliance work until Hartwell assigns certified personnel to our account. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. I understand. What about work that's already in progress? You can complete current deliverables, but no new projects, no new documentation, nothing that requires regulatory sign-off. And if we assign certified personnel, then we can resume. But Rachel, she paused. It needs to be someone actually certified, not someone who's learning, not someone who's almost there. Certified. Understood. I'm sending the formal notice to your management today. I wanted to give you a heads up first. I appreciate that. After we hung up, I sat very still at my desk. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt careful, because I knew what was coming next. At 11:30 a.m., Brent stormed into the main office. Rachel. Conference room. Now. I followed him. He slammed the door. Mercer just suspended our contract, he said, voice shaking with anger. I heard. You heard? You heard. He was almost shouting. Do you understand what you've done? I provided accurate personnel information to the client. You cost us $1.8 million. No, I said quietly. You assigned uncertified personnel to an account that legally requires certification. I just made sure the client knew. You should have come to me first. I did. Last Thursday. You said the decision was final. That was internal. You didn't need to tell the client. I pulled out my phone, opened the contract, scrolled to section 6.3. Contractor shall notify client of any personnel changes within 24 hours, including updated credentials and qualifications. I turned the phone toward him. It's not optional. It's contractual. Brent's face was purple now. You're trying to make me look bad. I'm trying to keep us in compliance with federal law. Get out, he said. Just get out. I walked back to my desk. At 3 p.m. our CEO called an emergency meeting. All senior staff. I wasn't invited, but I heard about it. Brent tried to blame me. Said I went rogue. Said I sabotaged the transition. Then someone asked the question that mattered. Is David Chen actually certified? Brent said. Not yet, but... Not yet. The CEO interrupted. So we assigned uncertified personnel to a contract that requires certification? Silence. And we didn't tell the client? More silence. The meeting ended shortly after that. At 4:45 p.m. I got an email from HR. Please attend a meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. to discuss your status with the Mercer account. I forwarded it to my personal email, added it to my documentation folder. Then I went home. The next morning I walked into the HR conference room. Brent was there. So was Amanda from HR. And our CEO Michael Harrington. Michael spoke first. Rachel, we need to understand what happened with Mercer. I folded my hands on the table. I'd be happy to walk you through it. Please do. I pulled out a printed timeline. Everything documented. On April 14th, Brent emailed me reassigning the Mercer account to David Chen. I asked if David was certified. Brent said the decision was final, but didn't confirm certification. I slid a copy of the email across the table. I checked David's personnel file. He has no GXP certification. The Mercer contract requires it. Section 4.2. I slid the contract section across the table. Section 6.3 requires us to notify Mercer of personnel changes within 24 hours. I sent the notification Monday morning with David's personnel profile. Why did you include his profile? Brent demanded. Because the contract requires updated credentials for anyone working on the account. Michael looked at the contract. Read it. Looked up. This says certified personnel are mandatory. Correct. And David isn't certified. Correct. Michael turned to Brent. You knew this. I thought we could work around it, Brent said. Work around federal law? It was a transition period. There's no transition period for FDA requirements, I said quietly. Either you're certified or you're not. Michael rubbed his temples. What's Mercer's current status? They've suspended new work, I said. Existing projects can continue, but only if handled by certified personnel. Meaning you? Yes. Silence filled the room. Finally, Michael spoke. Rachel, you're reassigned to the Mercer account. Effective immediately. Brent started to object. Michael held up his hand. This isn't negotiable. We're not losing our biggest client because of a cost-cutting decision that violated the contract. He turned to Brent. We'll discuss this separately. The meeting ended. I went back to my desk. Opened my email. Found Jennifer's contact. Subject: Personnel Update Certified Resource Assigned. Hi Jennifer. I wanted to inform you that I've been reassigned as the primary contact for Mercer's account, effective immediately. My GXP certification remains current. Expires March 2025. I'm available to discuss resuming normal operations at your convenience. Best regards, Rachel. She responded in 20 minutes. Thank you for the update. I'll discuss internally and get back to you. 2 days later, Mercer lifted the suspension. Work resumed as normal. Brent was quietly moved to a different department. No announcement. No explanation. Just moved. David stayed with the company, but he was reassigned to non-regulated accounts. Nice kid. Not his fault. 3 months later, I got a different email. This one from Mercer's CEO. We're expanding our compliance needs and would like to discuss increasing the scope of our contract. Would you be available for a call? That call led to a contract expansion. $2.4 million annually, up from $1.8 million. They also requested that I be named as the dedicated account manager. In writing, in the contract, we want to make sure we're working with certified personnel, their CEO said. Someone who understands the rules aren't optional. The new contract was signed in August. By October, I was promoted to Director of Compliance. $145,000 salary, plus a percentage of any account expansions I secured. Brent left the company in December. Took a job somewhere else. I never spoke to him again. Here's what I learned from all of this. Some rules exist for a reason. They're not there to be annoying. They're there to protect people. GXP certification isn't just bureaucracy. It's the standard that keeps medications safe. It's the training that prevents mistakes that could hurt patients. When someone tries to shortcut those rules to save money, they're not being efficient. They're being reckless. Brent thought he could replace me with someone cheaper and nobody would notice. He didn't understand that in regulated industries people check. Clients check. The FDA checks. You can't fake certification. You can't work around federal requirements. And when you try, it doesn't just risk the contract. It risks people's safety. I didn't sabotage Brent. I didn't go behind his back. I didn't break any rules. I followed the contract. I provided accurate information. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. The fact that it ended badly for him wasn't my fault. It was his. He made a decision without understanding the consequences. And when those consequences arrived, he tried to blame me. But the evidence was clear. The timeline was documented. The contract requirements were explicit. You can't argue with facts. 6 months after everything settled, I ran into David at a company event. Hey, he said, looking a little awkward. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry about all that. You don't have anything to apologize for. I told him. You didn't make the decision to assign you to Mercer. Brent did. Yeah, but I should have known I wasn't qualified. You're 24. You trusted your boss. That's not your fault. He nodded. For what it's worth, I started GXP training last month. I smiled. That's great. Really. When you pass the exam, come find me. I'll make sure you get assigned to a good account. Really? Really? You're smart. You ask good questions. You just need the certification. Get that and you'll do fine. He did get certified. 8 months later. Passed on his first try. I assigned him to a smaller pharmaceutical client. He did excellent work. Last I heard, he's a senior compliance analyst now. Doing well. Because here's the thing. This was never about David. It was never personal. It was about rules that exist to protect people. And managers who think those rules don't apply to them. I'm still at Hartwell. Still managing the Mercer account. Still certified. Still following the rules. Because in this industry, the rules aren't there to slow you down. They're there to keep people safe. And some things are more important than cost savings. If you work in a regulated industry, or if you've ever dealt with a boss who thought rules were optional, drop a comment. Tell me your story. And if this resonated with you, hit like. Subscribe for more stories where following the rules beats cutting corners. Because at the end of the day, certification isn't just a piece of paper. It's proof that you know what you're doing. And when lives are on the line, that matters more than anything else.